and delighted to be joined now by the Free Speech Union's External Affairs Officer, Connie. Very good afternoon to you. I still remember speaking to you the very first time when you were facing issues and Free Speech Union helped you out. It's great that you're now part of the FSU. I'm a member as well. A couple of things I want to talk to you about, but this one I've just been, just giving a vague summary about, a mum of a disabled child trying to get her kid into a summer camp, and basically she and the child, the disabled child, banned from summer camp for the heinous crime of, I don't know, knowing biological fact. Tell us who this was and tell us what happened.
So this is a charity called Over the Wall that organises these trips for severely disabled children and their parents. And at the end of last year, the mother of this 8-year-old boy, who up until recently was being fed 100% through a tube, in the form that she had to fill out for him, one of the questions was, what's your child's pronouns? And instead of going along with this religious ritual that's inflicted on nearly every person that engages with any public organisation these days, she just wrote seriously, ? And sent the form back.
I mean, I got asked to fill out preferred pronouns and gender and like all the different options, and I complain. Every time I see those forms, I formally complain. I say, no, I will stop this nonsense. So she didn't say, F off or anything like that. She simply just wrote seriously because it was a boy.
Yeah, an 8-year-old boy.
So his name was then on the form, and presumably also is he a boy or a girl, or male, female. So of course his pronouns are he and him.
Well, you'd think so, but then multiple months later she got a call from one of the directors of the company, and she was asked to explain herself as to what she meant.
Explain herself.
And that phone call, she was honest, and she said, no, I don't engage with this sort of stuff. I don't believe in this ideology, and I believe that there are two sexes and you can't change sex. The phone call ended, and moments later she got an email saying that she and her son were not allowed to come on this trip because her views do not align with the inclusive policies of this charity. And what's so funny about this is that all of their internal comms, which we have seen through subject access requests, that many of these organisations don't realise how much data they have to give over to you that they have. All of it say that it is due to her views not aligning with their policies, but now it's gone public and the charity was contacted for comment by The Telegraph. They said, no, it wasn't about her views, it was because she was verbally aggressive on the phone, which is a very common line.
But this is not mentioned in any of the internal emails.
No, none of the internal emails.
This woman became aggressive and we just didn't feel she was right. Which would be an interesting, a fair reason to say, look, I'm not sure this is the right person to come on this trip. But I love that they're inclusive, but not inclusive of a woman, a mother with the views which are the vast majority of the population's views, and also, I know it's a small point, biologically factual, but also not inclusive of her son.
Yes.
An 8-year-old, very severely disabled kid that was otherwise have been able to benefit from, obviously, I would like to think is a good charity. I would now no longer, that sort of charity think, that's a charity worth giving money to. Well, I wouldn't anymore.
Well, not only does it raise questions about their wider sort of, like you say, inclusivity policies, they're so inclusive that they've managed to ban severely disabled child from the opportunity of making friends. But this charity is funded by BBC Children in Need.
Of course it is.
Of course, Rosie Millard, the ex-chair of BBC Children in Need, she was, as she says, thrown under the bus when she questioned LGBT Youth Scotland, the funding of them, when they were problematic and had serious safeguarding issues. But also, in general, these are children who need round-the-clock care. Yeah. Having single-sex care is very important. So if they're this extreme on pronouns, what happens when a mother says, I don't want any man looking after my daughter when she needs to be washed?
Which is a completely reasonable thing to be concerned about. But this is the thing. It is a simple matter of fact that you can't change sex. The likes of Professor Robert Winston, who knows a bit about these things, made these statements on Question Time. Of course, they're blackballed by the BBC. We had Maya Forstatter of Sex Matters. She had a case that went all the way up to the top court, where the ruling was, and it does annoy me this, it is a protected belief, philosophical belief, that you cannot change sex and that a woman is, there's a woman and a man and men can't become women and vice versa. I mean, it annoys me that that's a belief. It's not a belief, it's a simple matter of factual truth. But nevertheless, this has been the law for quite some time. We've then had the Supreme Court ruling last April, making it very clear that whether it's sex, it is biological sex, that is the only thing that matters. So none of this stuff should be coming up, but it keeps all coming up, whether it's changing rooms in the NHS for nurses or whether it's someone asking for pronouns and the like. But people are being penalised and punished for saying, no, I would rather go along with fact, science and the law.
And I must add, Julia, that in their statement to the Telegraph, where they start off by saying, oh, it wasn't actually about her views, it was because she was apparently verbally aggressive on the phone, they end the statement by saying, also, our decision was influenced by the fact that there's a trans child on this trip, so we thought we didn't want to cause any tension. So it's not about your views, but also it is about your views.
Okay, she needs to sue them for libel. I mean, absolutely. If you've been accused falsely of being verbally abusive and you haven't, and there's no evidence that you have been, she should absolutely do that. I'll help crowdsource that one. But for me, there is no such thing as a trans child. If you've got severely disabled children, and that someone has, I mean, they ain't come up with this idea in their own heads. They've been basically told, oh, well, actually what your issue is, and we've seen this with lots of severely mentally ill children, with children who've got severe learning difficulties like autism and the like, children who've been sexually abused, and being told, or children who are just simply gay and they've got parents who won't accept that, being told that actually the problem they've got is actually the fact they're born in the wrong body. How dare someone tell a severely disabled child that? How dare they?
I know, it's really concerning, and to know that, like you say, that's something I actually hadn't considered, the fact that these kids are so disabled. How on earth has this child been, I'm sorry, groomed into this ideology?
Because it is grooming, it is grooming. And in terms of where, I mean, the Free Speech Union is involved in this, what are they doing and what's going to happen, do you think?
Well, the mother isn't minded at the moment to take legal action because she wants to protect the privacy of her and her child, which is even more devastating about this whole situation because her child is so vulnerable. And this is another example of ideology being put in front of the most vulnerable children who need the most suitable care. And I cannot dread to think what goes on in these camps if they are this extreme on this issue. But our single biggest category of cases, 20% of all of our cases are still transgender ideology and pronouns. So it's not a surprise to anyone
going on.
At the FSC.
And again, you remember these people who have decided to not let an 8-year-old disabled boy come on this trip because the mother expressed factual views that were expressed by the majority of the population of this country and by the law. They think they're the nice people.
I know.
That's the bit that always gets me. They think they're the nice people. Can I also ask you another story? This is it. Apparently we have these visas called global talent visas, and you'd be thinking, yeah, let's say, so some big pop stars, some big names in acting, that you want them to be able to travel easily. We want them to be in their, their film roles, and we can make a load of money. Lots of people making money in the film industry, and let's face it, our popular culture is a huge export for this country. And there might be some other sort of major artists, whether they are, I would have thought, musicians or in a symphony orchestra or painters. Yeah, absolutely. Let's get the best of the brightest coming to this country. Well, apparently, Turkish transgender drag queens are some of those who've been included on special visas for global talent. You get 5-year visa to come here, and you get to bring your family, and because they've claimed artist merit, and they're even endorsed by the Arts Council. Is there a shortage of Turkish transgender drag queens in this country that we needed to fill? I don't know.
There may be a shortage of Turkish transgender drag queens, but there certainly isn't a shortage of drag queens, and that's the talent that they're supposedly bringing. I mean, I completely disagree with drag. I think it's completely offensive.
It's woman face.
I do think it's woman face.
Blackface not acceptable.
I completely support people's right to do it, but we certainly don't have a shortage. And I think the last thing we need to be doing is importing more fascistic men into this country who want to undermine women's rights, because that's what this is. And I think people don't realise. I speak to my mum about this, and she said, "But drag's just a bit of fun." It's like, no, mum.
I used to think it was fun, and I'm less and less of that.
Because if you look at what these people are saying, it's mocking women, but it's also completely wrapped up in trans ideology, and that is undermining women's rights. We have enough of it going on in this country.
Yeah, we don't need to import
any more of it.
Absolutely fascinating. Also, I can't imagine they could think, oh, I can't go back to Turkey because, look, Sam Armstrong's been with us. And I know you do a lot of work with the Conservative Party. You're an independent commentator, but you also do a lot of work at the Free Speech Union. Where do you stand on this?
Well, look, I'll tell you this, you're never going to get migration down to the level that we want in this country if you're reserving places for Turkish drag queens. I mean,
I think that's a fair summary of the situation.
Look, we just want you to make the promises you've made. You say you can't do it, it's too tough, but you're letting in Turkish drag queens.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the other one?
How do we cut the numbers? Well, here's an easy one. Are they also astrophysicists and engineers and world-famous brain surgeons? Then maybe that'd be fine. Otherwise, I'm going to vote no. 12:48 time. Huge thanks to Connie for joining us.